This podcast is brought to you by True Resources, connecting talented people with the best mining employers in the Australian market. For more information, head to trueresources.com.au. So, hello, I'm Ben Kostrich, and this is the Market Bull podcast. Joining me on the show today is Michael Minasora, the Chairman of Siguiri Gold, which is currently in the process of capital raising for an initial public offering on the ASX, and its code will be SGD. And Michael's here to talk all about what the company's focusing on, where it is, and everything really in the gold scene, as the name would suggest. So, welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Ben.
Let's talk initially about your history. When I was looking at your resume or your bio, you previously worked at Woodside, Fortescue Metals, and now as the chairman and quite a few other things within the resource scene. So talk to us about your history and how that's evolved to now taking on this position.
As a Perth-born person, you're surrounded by the metals and minerals industry, so it's a natural sort of progression for people here in Perth to get into the sector. I started my career at Ernst & Young and was there for over 2 decades. Through that, did work with Rio, many of the other named companies here in WA, and built up a real knowledge of the metals and minerals sector. From there, progressed into corporate life with Woodside, as you mentioned, with Fortescue. And then in about 2010, decided to go out into the capital markets world, which has really been the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, and did you find that you were specialising in certain, regions of even Australia or internationally? Like, did you have sort of exposure to all the different surrounding countries and commodities, or where was that sort of path taking you?
The path that I've gone down has really been driven by opportunities. I'm a real big believer in terms of management can make a project, and so what that means is as opportunities come through, you assess those opportunities based on the technical side, but the most important thing is to get the right management team in place.
Okay, and then again, pivoting now, you had an extended career within some big names that we all know. Then where did this opportunity come with Siguiri Gold, and talk to us about what that company is?
Sure, yeah. Siguiri came to me via the founders of the company. That was 2 guys called Michael Mulvey and Dan James. They had been in Guinea since about 2016 or so, and prior to that in West Africa, and they had identified the opportunity, which is today Siguiri. They approached me via some folks, some of the seed capitalists in the company, out of New York, who are also directors of the company. And the reason I was approached was my history in Guinea, my previous experience, which really started about 2015, at a time where I was asked by Hatch Engineering to look at a problematic project that they had in Guinea, which was a bauxite project. Ended up being very heavily involved in that project. That project has since gone on to produce 10,000 tonnes per annum of bauxite and is looking to grow. So having now been in the country for over 9 years, I'm really understand the country, understand the people, but most importantly see the opportunity for Siguiri Gold.
Okay, so nearly 10 years really we'd like to round up, and that will be approaching, but it's in Africa, and the package of the company, when I was looking back at it, the name suggests solely really at the moment focused on gold. So talk to us about the bread and butter of what Siguiri Gold is.
Siguiri is a absolutely focused gold company in the Siguiri Basin, which forms part of the Birmian Shield, which cuts across Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso and some other countries, in a well understood province for gold.
I mean, looking at Guinea, I haven't really spoken with a company or a director that's operating in that region. Can you paint the picture of what that region or country, I should say, is known for, and what's their approach with mining, and how's that really shifted over the nearly 10 years that you've been working in that country?
Yeah, great question, Ben. Often when I speak to investors, they put Guinea in the bucket of Africa. What people don't always appreciate is that Africa is actually 54 different countries. And in my view, you need to look at each country in terms of what its potential is, what its people are like, what its government is like. And Guinea sort of stood out to me as a country that has lots of opportunities. And more importantly, whilst there is changes in government, the reality is since independence back in 1958, the country actually has progressed and importantly has accelerated that level of progression in recent years.
So then over the 10 years, have you seen quite a pivotal switch in particular with the focus on mining, or what's really been evolving in that country that's, I guess, making you quite interested in pursuing this company and this opportunity?
Well, there's been massive changes in the last 10 years in Guinea in terms of if we just focus on the metals and minerals sector. When I first went there, Guinea was known only for bauxite. And today, your listeners may have seen that, for example, the Rio Tinto winning joint venture has invested $26 billion in an iron ore project, being the Simandou iron ore project. That's probably the single biggest metals and minerals investment globally over the last 5 years or so. At the same time, you've seen emerging gold companies. There's companies like Predictive who have done an exceptionally good job in defining the Bankan project. They've raised $90 million in the last 9 months. Companies like Robex just recently raised 126 million Canadian for their Kinero project. We've got Hummingbird with its project at Caruso. There's been a massive change in these last short 10 years.
Yeah, the cohort of companies operating in Guinea sounds quite extensive, and can't imagine that it's really slowing down either. And that sort of pivots into Siguiri Gold and the IPO that's coming. So talk about what is involved in that IPO, and I mean, what is the prospectus if it's a few sentences, because I know the full one is quite a few hundred pages, for example. But what is the real objective of raising these funds, and when can we expect more information?
The single objective for this fundraising is to accelerate exploration. There's been about 8 million Canadians spent so far by the company. The company has actually been around since 2018, so it's not a junior in that sense. It's not a early stage exploration company. It's very advanced exploration. It's drilled almost 34,000 metres already. So that's an extensive investment. That 34,000 metres has confirmed what we believe is the geological bequest that we've got there. You know, the founders, Michael and Dan, saw the opportunity by referencing the Anglo Gold Ashanti gold mine. That's only 10 kilometres to the north of us. That's been operating uninterrupted since 1998. Produces, on average, somewhere between 250,000 ounces and 270,000 ounces a year. Great track record. The SAG mine sits on in the same basin as us, on the same geological formation as us, and I'm confident in saying that because our drilling confirms that.
So there's been quite a substantial amount of work previously done, and that's been sort of building it up.
That's right.
So then, I mean, painting that picture, I mean, can you elaborate a little bit more on, I mean, there's a lot of drill holes that have been done already, but how has that really led up to now going with the backdated work that's been done over the last, anywhere between 4 to 6 years?
Yeah, the company, a decision was made by the board. Now time with the gold market being where it is and the opportunity in front of us to accelerate the company's development. So the IPO will allow us to drill up to another 70,000 metres. That 70,000 metres is designed to deliver us a project. So in terms of news flow, in terms of what does the next 6 months look like, we'll be starting to release information as early as September, October. That's information coming out of our December last year, January this year drilling program. That was on our West permit. So there'll be initial news flow, and as we do the drilling, we'll be releasing further information, as you would expect, going forward. That's going to culminate in a maiden resource early 2025. And that's really where our focus is today.
Yeah.
Going through 2025, we expect to deliver our PFS somewhere at the back end of that year.
So that's a substantial, sort of runway of what needs to be achieved then, naturally.
Yeah, a lot of planning has gone into this. We don't look towards the next drill hole or to the next 10 drill holes. We're looking to build a company and a project.
So then, I mean, talking about that, you just mentioned there the timing within the gold sector, because as we're speaking now, gold from an Australian but even a US point is, up above, 2,400 at least, and more than that in Australian dollars. Is that playing a pretty big role in really developing this project now? Because given that where it is that sort of capitalising on a high gold price and potentially a low operating cost, well in future down the line?
It's a mixture of things that are driving where we're going today. One is we have spent a lot of money in the ground, and it has proven up what we've got there. The gold price is definitely helping. I think market sentiment towards junior explorers is going to change, and we will capitalise on that. And where we deliver what we say we're going to do, which is drilling results this year, maiden resource early next year, PFS towards the end of next year, that'll excite investors.
So talk to us a little bit more about the project that you guys have in the portfolios. It's a sole project. Can you expand a little bit more about what is encompassing this project?
Yeah, the project, as it sits just below the SAG mine, is very much focused on what we see as the oxide potential. And what I mean by that is that the geological sequence we sit on is characterised by really two ore types. One is the saprolite, or the oxide material in the top roughly 75 vertical metres, and then you've got the fresh material or fresh rock below. The reason why we're attracted to the oxide is it's very low cost to mine, very low cost to process, and exceptionally good metallurgical recoveries. So to give you an idea, projects similar to ours, you could expect an operating cost of around $900 an ounce. The delta between that and $2,500 an ounce is pretty significant. So you can see where the opportunity starts emerging.
Massively.
Yeah, and with the oxide rocks, they're really from surface. So we have low strip ratios, virtually no overburden, very, very, very straightforward. And that then drives things like low capital costs, simple plant, straightforward plant. So you can see how it comes together, that this is not a difficult project. You can execute it well, you can execute it simply, and importantly, it can happen fast. We don't need to develop any new technologies. We've got the comparables around us in terms of projects. It's really straightforward.
And we're talking about the scale of, because really it's a single project focused company. Yep. Talk about the actual size of this land mass that you've got, and you alluded to before the neurology of some of the other players that are even in operating and mining gold as we speak. But how large is this package, and really how much more potentially have you got to expand as the campaigns get underway?
The package as it sits today is 148 square kilometres. It's a good size and look to develop. The importance, though, is that it's just not moose pasture. This package sits on the geological sequence where gold sits. So it's about quality rather than quantity. Yeah. And in terms of where do we go from here, as people will observe in the prospectus, we're in discussions of acquiring adjoining properties. Whether that happens or not, that's interesting. But what we do know is the ground we have will deliver us a project.
And naturally, the infrastructure, the setup, the accessibility, a lot of the companies or projects that are coming online now don't, or sometimes do, sometimes don't have access to, ports, distribution networks, all of that. Sure. What's the location-wise for Siguiri, and how is that potentially going to be beneficial, or does there need to be a bit more work to increase accessibility?
We're well located in the Siguiri Basin happen to be about 45 minutes from Siguiri Township.
Helpful.
And we're near the Sag Mine, which is, as I said, about 10 kilometres to the north of us. And if you go around the sort of roads, it takes us about 45 minutes to get there as well. Guinea is a poor country, but it is developing.
Yeah.
So, and the rate of development is pretty stunning, actually. Only 2 years ago, it would take you, say, 18 hours by road to get to the mine site or the project site. Today, it takes 12 hours. This is just the rate of change is great. In terms of establishing a project, we've got lots of comparables around us. We've obviously got the Sag Mine that's been going since 1998, as I've mentioned a few times. You've got Hummingbird's Carusa Mine, that's 200 kilometres or so to roughly the south of us. We've got lots of comparables around that we can learn from and are learning from in terms of what the optimum size project we might want to go forward with, what are the infrastructure issues we have. So it's all part of what we do on a daily basis almost now to think towards the future.
And you touched before about, again, the potential change in government, but how is the support potentially for the mining and these big multinational companies coming in, and by extension the juniors, how are they supporting potentially the exploration and the mining development in the country, and is there any benefits and opportunities with them? What's the conversations like with them?
Yeah, one of the attractions for me of Guinea is ease of doing business with government, and the speed of doing business with government. Often people talk to me about the risk of doing business in West Africa. I keep pointing to people that there's many countries in West Africa. We're in Guinea. It's not the same as Mali. It's not the same as Burkina Faso. Yeah. It's actually a very peaceful country. The people are really good to deal with. Safety is not an issue. People shouldn't just
paint it with the same brush.
No, I think it's just too much of a generalisation. It's sort of like saying Western Australians are the same as New South Welshmen. We're very different. So, so if the Ghanaian government has a very good mining code. It's been stable since 2012. It's clear, it's prescriptive, follow the rules, and everything works. And of course, that's what you do. You follow the rules. Yeah. I often mention to people that for projects that you'd want to try and get up, say here in Western Australia, best luck, best chance, 3 to 5 years. In Guinea, you'll do it under a year if you're organised. So that speed of approval is massive. And the requirements are no less than you have, say, here in Australia or in North America or wherever you might be. It's just the way that you work through it is a lot quicker.
So then, I mean, we're speaking right now from Perth, from West Perth. Yeah. What's the team sort of development like in country? Have you started building that? Well, naturally there should already be one, given that it's not just happening now. It's been 6 years. I have to remind myself of that. Yeah, what is the team like there, and how are you guys engaging with local communities and bringing them in and naturally upskilling them?
Yeah, and we've got a great team. Like the Mick and Dan, who I've mentioned a few times, they took a decision early on to be in country and to build infrastructure where the project is. That's a massive plus. What that has enabled us to do is to get close to the 5 villages that are around our properties, and I'd have to say they've done a great job in engaging with those communities. Big positive. It's a big positive not only from a day-to-day basis, but also when we're dealing with the government. The government sees we have been doing the right thing all the way along. And that's something that's highly valued within the Ghanaian government. And we'll continue to do that. Yeah. We don't have fancy community programs. We have real community programs, and that's where I'd draw a massive difference between us and a lot of others.
Okay. And touching on the team, the co-founders are both still heavily involved, and who else is a part of the management and board team, and what is their experience? Has that evolved over the last handful of years, or is it a relatively consistent team and then bring in experience as you need and see fit?
Yeah, the team's actually been pretty stable. I'm probably the new person on the block, actually.
Fair.
Yeah. But again, Mick and Dan have been there from inception. We've got a number of other expats in country who Mick and Dan brought in. We have a very good country manager by the name of Adama Coyote. He's excellent in engaging with communities and with the government. On the board, we have, apart from myself and Mick, who I've mentioned, we've got Henry and Sean. They're both out of New York. They're very successful in this space of developing countries. They actually were the folks that approached me. And then we've also got Martin Smith, who's a principal with Como Engineering. So we're bringing that technical expertise. And as our VP Exploration, we have Andre. And Andre's been with the company really from probably about 2020 or thereabouts. So good history. And Andre's got a solid history in this style of mineralisation and this part of the world. So
and this
very good team.
Yeah, so this is all culminating in the IPO. So
Yep.
if you can flush out, you said there's already the prospectus that's online, and that in that it states what the next year plus objectives are and what the funds are going to be used for. But you can just talk about how much you're looking to raise, where exactly the focus of that is going to be, and naturally for those that are potentially interested, where can they go to get some more information about it?
Sure. So we're out there raising 8 to 10 million. That process really started just 2 weeks ago. And the way we've approached it is that we look to the Australian market first, particularly the retail investors, and that's been led by CPS. They've done a great job.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much closing that as we speak.
Yeah.
Our focus in the last week has then turned to the North American, UK institutional market. And the reason for going out to them is thinking forward. We want to get quality institutions on our book. So my week over the last week has been early morning and late night calls with a cross-section of really good names in both of those locations, and the feedback's been exceptionally positive. So we're looking to close the IPO in the next few weeks. But it's not about raising, for us, it's not only about raising the money, it's about getting quality money in.
So again, once the raise is done, then there'll be naturally a little bit of time before the bell is rung for the listing. Have you got some potential insights as to when that is and when people can anticipate it and when the ticker goes live for SGD?
Yeah. Subject to ASX admission process, which unfortunately I can't do much about.
Naturally.
I'd love to. We're looking towards the end of August, maybe goes over into September.
Okay.
So it's everything's sort of set to go forward, but you need to go through some process.
Okay.
And then we'll work from there.
Gotcha. And then all the money's in the bank. You said there's this runway of doing some drilling and then building up to a PFS in a couple of years as this project goes. I mean, if you're looking at really key takeaways for what investors should be thinking about and considering when looking at Siguiri, what would some of those takeaways be?
Perhaps I'll just reflect some of the comments I've had from investors and of the various types that we've been speaking to. The management team and the pre-IPO investors are committed to the company. Management are pretty much locked in for 2 years under escrow provision, so we're there for at least 2 years. The bulk of the pre-IPO other investors are locked up in one way or another. And we actually released a second prospectus yesterday, second supplementary prospectus, just to highlight the fact that 82% of all pre-IPO investors are locked up. We can account for another 17% on top of that, so there's going to be very little pre-IPO money coming out, if any. So focusing on the capital structure and the quality of the capital structure is really important, because we want to, and we will, do everything that's sensible to make sure folks coming in the pre-IPO will enjoy a good outcome. From there, in terms of once the funds are in, then it's just focus on drilling, advancing the project itself, and moving forward.
Fantastic.
And it won't be 2 years for PFS. It'll be a bit more like 15 months.
Very okay. That's good to know because as you said, there's the acceleration in gold love again. It's got a shine back. Previously, a couple of years ago, not many people were overly interested in it, and now it's given the price and where it is and where it's moving to potentially. There's a lot of excitement, and especially speaking, you talked about. Some places in Australia or even other Western worlds where it takes a little bit longer to get all this done.
A lot longer,
it's quite exciting. And for those that are interested in following the story and connecting with potentially you and the company, where can listeners and viewers go to access and find you?
Yep, www.sigirigoldcorp.com.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for speaking on the show today. There's a lot unfolding in Guinea with Siguiri Gold, and there's going to be, as you said, a lot of news flow coming out over the coming months and probably quite exciting stuff. So,
Very
again,
exciting.
Appreciate you taking the time to speak with me on the show today.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks for listening to the Market Bull podcast. Please remember that the topics and stocks discussed in this podcast are not financial advice. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, and follow. You can follow the Market Bull on all our socials and keep up to date with global market insights.